What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the RP Experience. I'm your host, Andrew Regenhard, with Southwest Florida Real Producers, and today we're going to be talking with Giovanni Matita, who is with NRL Mortgage. NRL Mortgage is a value partner with Real Producers. Giovanni, it's great having you on. Thank you for joining us today.
Andrew, good to see you, buddy. Super happy to be here.
Giovanni is a high-producing agent and branch manager of NRL Mortgage. He's a proud father of two and is passionate about his line of work, and you're going to be hearing that today when we talk about inflation in the housing market. So let's dive in, Gio.
Let's go.
All right. What factors do you think contribute to the rising home prices? It's been so apparent, if you are anywhere in this area, that the prices just keep rising and rising and rising. So what factors have contributed to that?
Okay, great question. And a lot of it is supply and demand. Basic economics. There's a housing shortage, which is hard for a lot of people to understand, but there's more buyers than there are homes, and each home down here has 10 to 15 different offers on these homes, specifically in Florida. And COVID has been a catalyst to this, and I get to see this every day. Is people are able to work from home, and you have some very high-paying jobs and even government jobs that have to normally stay in D.C., and they're able to come down to Florida, and they're purchasing homes in Florida, which are expensive to Floridians, but very inexpensive to someone coming from D.C., and that's been the undertone of driving home prices that most people don't get to see unless you're actually in the business.
Yeah. So I think the greatest analogy to that is that video that circuit the interwebs of the apple. The apple is for sale. What am I paying for this apple? Oh, well, and the one comment from the guy was, well, it's really cheap compared to California.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. It's going through the entire country, and from a consumer standpoint, if you're not paying attention to that, you don't see that.
No. And then we're in a little bubble, right? We see what they were, a couple of years ago, and we're like, I looked at that house and it was worth this amount, and then there's a whole higher number in the very beginning,
right?
Another million or whatever it is, and you're like, what? It's just insane.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said about the higher prices, what is the relationship between housing prices, and the KPI inflation? And can you explain the KPI to listeners?
Sure. So, inflation, and we've been hearing a lot about that lately, right? So just, was it 2 weeks ago? Our inflation number came out, and it's, 7.5 times what they thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Hasn't been this high since 1982, which sounds like a lot of numbers and is confusing to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But if you break it down from a practical standpoint, you go to the grocery store, you're buying less groceries for the same amount of money. Yep. Things are just costing more. And
that CPI for the listeners too is the Consumer Price Index,
correct.
Right? That's the overall, like, how would you make that to a dummy like me that's not involved in the numbers on a daily basis?
So it's the price of goods that the consumers are paying.
Like an average,
right?
An
average,
right,
correct. Right.
Okay.
40% of all U.S. dollars. This is such a wild number to consider. So just think about this for a second. 40% of all U.S. currency from the entire creation of the United States till today were created in the last 24 months. So 40% of all of our money in the United States was printed digitally, physically in the last 24 months to fight off what was going on with COVID. So when you think about that, there is a lot more currency that was just created, and to a degree it was created out of thin air. And it's a lot more complex of a topic than I could even cover. But there's just
40% is not 4%. It's not 10%. 40% is an astronomical amount of money.
Nearly 50% of our currency ever created from however old the United States is, we're close to 300 years, was just created. That's where people are going, well, why is this so much money? What's going on? The dollar just doesn't have the buying power that it used to have. That's the best way to explain inflation. That there's just more of it, so it has less power, right? Like with anything else. And that's what's been the driving force. And why I want to do this podcast so bad is things are not going to become less expensive just because of the influx of that money. And that's also why rates are rising, to control that influx of money coming in. So rates rise to control currency and to control our economy, because if they stay low, then a dollar is really going to be worth nothing.
Correct.
Right? Because you're going to need $1 million to buy a cup of coffee. Like that's happened in other countries. So that's why rates are rising, and they're not coming back down, because we have to fight off the inflation of all the money that was just put into the economy.
Interesting. That's crazy to think about that concept of how many years we've been operational and had X amount of dollars, and now we almost just doubled it in the last 24 months.
Correct. And that's not that is a fact.
Yeah, it's not like negotiable, right?
Yes.
It's not an opinion. It's a fact. Holy moly. All right. Well, I'm going to process that one for a while. Talk about the recent behavior and expectations between the prices and the KPI. So, obviously what's going on behaviorally within the housing markets, how does that relate to the inflation, but also expectations now moving forward?
Sure. The biggest behavioral is a lot of the consumers are just not aware, right? Because it just happened, and it happened so fast. You use the analogy, you go to the gas station, gas is $2.50 a gallon. Mm-hmm. You go the next time you need gas and it's $3.50. What happened?
Right.
That's what's going on in the economy. That's why I was so excited to do this podcast, because you have the top 500 agents in our area, and they're influential, and we need to get this information out to them, and then we also need to get it out to the rest of the consumers in our economy, because that's what's this is our new reality. And I know we're going to get into this later, but the shortage of homes and the type of people buying homes right now that are very well qualified, there is no fluff. There is no speculation. This is our new reality, and I don't see it going the other way for a really long time or forever. This
Right.
is our new standard.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it a little bit, but for the listeners that don't understand, right, from that prior crash, it was people were given money when they didn't earn, they shouldn't have been given the money in the first place, right? That was the whole reason for the crash. Am I correct?
Yes. So what was going on is you had people who owned 3 and 4 and 5 homes that really didn't qualify technically for one.
Right. And when things get a little bit tough, right? What happens? Oops. Well, I'll just get rid of that one. I'll foreclose that one. And that was a trickle effect, right? And it trickled all the way down and all the way up. That'd be all the way up.
And then down.
Yeah.
I'll say this as well. Over the last 24 months, it's never been more challenging to write a loan, especially for self-employed borrowers. The government agencies, Fannie and Freddie, really learned their lesson with 2008 and 9. And there's things in place now that, make for very strict underwriting guidelines. And just from a very common sense perspective, rates got super low. I know we're going to talk about that later, but you're going to give someone an interest rate of 2.5% or 3%. You better be very well qualified. So you got to just think of that, So
yeah, I mean, it's common sense, right? Like here, let me give you an example, right? Like to the listeners is like, here, Gio, I need $1,000, right? If you're going to be like, okay, well, are you going to repay me? I'll be like, yeah, I'll repay you $1,500, right? You're probably like, cool, here you go. Like, I'm not even going to ask any questions. If I'm like, I'll give you $1,000, 1,010, right? $10 on top of it. You'd be like, bro, that's a lot of risk for not very much reward. You're going to obviously make sure like that I'm actually going to pay, right? And that was the analogy that I finally needed personally to understand, because I didn't get that. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why is it hard or why is it tough? Or this doesn't correlate to me. And then when someone did tell me that, I was like, that makes sense now. Like that clicked,
Yeah, that's a great example.
It's interesting. Very interesting. So tell me, what has caused the prices to keep increasing and versus staying like at the current rates? Like you say, this is our new norm, right? And then you say, or it could go up, right? So what are the factors or what causes either maybe it to stay current or to go up?
Got it. The media will talk about supply and demand, supply chain. There's delays, but if you really think about it, if you go back to the practical sense again, that there is more money that's been printed and put into our economy, so it's worth less. That's something that everyone just needs to take a moment and maybe just do some research on their own. Our dollars are worth less because there's more of them, right? So that's a driving force. Another driving force that's not so apparent to individuals, as I said earlier, is there's people that have some very high paying jobs that are typically in New York, California, Chicago, and they're coming to Florida, right? So I'm gonna use Florida as an example, that we normally didn't have that type of, economy. So now they're coming here, and they're coming from, again, we could use California or DC, and they come and they purchase a property here, which is severely undervalued to them compared to where they're coming from, and they're making a very good living that is able to afford that. So you're renting a condo an apartment in DC for $3,500 a month. You come down to Southwest Florida, buy yourself a nice, beautiful home for that kind of money, right? So that's what's driving the force. And then, I was talking to a builder just the other day, and he's like, I'm 8 weeks out for trust, right? I was talking to a friend of mine that is building a beautiful home here in Pine Ridge Estates, and their cabinets are coming from Canada. Well, it's probably stuck on a truck somewhere, right? And that's the reality, right? So if you're out there looking for a home that the builder's waiting on trust or waiting on cabinets, but you need to move in your family, you're going to look for what's available, right? So now there's you have more buyers looking for something that is available, and you're going to pay up for it because you need a place to live. So that's driving that force of homes,
right?
And it's not slowing down, because if you talk to a builder, they're already looking at 2023 and 2024, which is mind blowing because of the supply chain. We fully don't understand that. And if you could even look at the, Wall Street Journal just came out and said used cars went up 40% in the last very short 40%. Why? Because there's a supply chain. But you and I are not experts. We don't know about the chip shortage. We just know thankfully we're not looking for a car right now. But if you're looking for a car right now and you talk to anyone, it's not a fun experience.
No, that's incredible. Obviously I came into this industry and I didn't know a ton, right? I'm learning a lot, but I'm always learning. One of the things I thought was really interesting and applies so perfectly is, the typical, here, let me order something online, right? When you get to that final step, right? It says, what shipping would you like? Oh, would you like the basic shipping that's going to take 2 weeks, right? Well, it's free. That's fine. Would you like the 5 to 7 day one? Oh, that's an upcharge. Oh, you want next day air? Well, that's way more. And that's exactly what's happening down here, right? You can get a house, right, with the trust and the builder and whatnot. It's just going to be way down the road, right? That's the new normal, right? The time of the days that it took to get here is just down the road now. But if you want it now, you just have to pay more. And I don't think people understand that, because that wasn't the norm. We're trained to click on the expedited shipping if we want, and we are trained to know that we're going to pay a lot of money to have it next day. Now, Amazon Prime does a pretty good job of that now, right? They've disrupted that market, so kudos to them. But it's just something that was trained for us, and it's just so new that I don't think people are really catching on right now. What does the average consumer usually not aware of in regards to the inflation and the housing prices? Obviously, I know we're getting pretty nitty gritty and in the weeds about it, but like, if you were going to speak into a general audience of the average consumer, what would you want them to know?
I would say what's on television is kind of surface, right? And if we just took some time to use the analogies that you used, hey, if I'm going to lend you $1,000 and you're going to pay me back $1,500, cool. I'm good with that. If I'm going to lend you $1,000, you're basically going to give me $1,000 back. You better be really well qualified, and I know I'm going to have it in a week, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then when you start to understand the supply chain shortage, and you start to understand, you talk to a builder. I talked to a builder. I was building a brand new home in Cape Coral, and I said, when are you going to be done? He goes, I could be done in 2 weeks. Done. I'm done. But I need my septic to be installed, and that's about a month to a month and a half out. And then once that gets installed, then I need an inspection from the health department, which is a month and a half out. So he is potentially 3 months away from selling that home, and he has a willing and able buyer to purchase that home, right? So what happens when that buyer is like, I can't wait 3 months. I need to get I need to switch schools, or the drive is killing me. What happens? Then they go look somewhere else, right? And now they're paying up for it. So if you just take a moment and look, go to the coffee shop. That's like one of the most accurate ways to really depict of what's going on.
Not Starbucks either.
Not Starbucks. doesn't really matter. But just listen.
Starbucks has always been expensive.
Yes, yeah. But just go and listen to what people are talking about and how they're saying, or just talk to someone. And we have, Real Producers is so awesome. You have the top 500 agents. Speak to one of them and say, hey, what are you seeing on the street? And then you're going to go, okay, that's what's really going on. That's why I'm so passionate about this. When COVID first happened, I thought the market was going to crash. And then I just started paying attention, and my phone kept ringing, and people kept wanting to buy homes. I'm like, this is weird. And no one was dropping their prices, right? And that's also a testament to the strict underwriting guidelines that were put in place from 2008. The people who own their home, even though the market, that no one knew what was going on in the economy, they were so well positioned and so well qualified that they just, I'm not going to sell my home in a fire sale.
Right.
I'll sell it for the price that I want to sell it. And then it just went the other way.
They held out. Right?
Yeah.
The Starbucks joke was not because it's a bad place to go. I thought you were going with prices of coffee, right, and inflation. And I'm like, oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, well, Starbucks has always been expensive. But, yeah, no, you ask around, you chat with people, and you're going to understand that it's a little bit different than kind of what you're just seeing online or what you're seeing on the news or on the TV or whatever. So kind of do your research, I think, is the moral of the story there for the average consumer. I know what you're getting yourself into. If you don't have time to do research, then you should pay the expert. And that's obviously why, you're in your industry. The realtors are doing what they're doing, and that's why they're the experts. It's because they're literally hands-on, boots on the ground every single day dealing with it. So we obviously are running out of time already, which is crazy. It's been flying by. One of the new things on RP Experience that we've been doing for the last few episodes is our standard questions. These 3 questions are the same questions, and everyone gets to answer these questions. The first one is, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for a later success? And do you have a favorite failure of yours?
How deep do you want to go?
As deep as you want to go. Up to you.
So, that's a great question, and I say this, and I say this wholeheartedly. Failure, I actually look at it as a setback, right? And I used to think of them as failures until you have enough of them, and then you're like, oh, it's a setback because I'm here today, right? I'm running a successful business, happily married, 2 kids. Life is good, and also still full of challenges. So, I've been I got into the mortgage business in 2004, went through 2008, went through some challenges personally as well. Financially at that time, I was super young, got into things I didn't understand. But now, looking back, that really helps me. That helps me understand when I'm speaking to someone that is maybe going through a tough time or coming out of a tough time, or someone who's super financially well off, right? So I understand that. Personally, I went through a divorce, and now looking back, that taught me a lot about myself as well. Really strengthened my faith, really strengthened my relationship with God. Married to my best friend. I'm a great dad. We have a good blended family. So those failures, which really became setbacks, which really became lessons, that now I'm able to connect with somebody on a whole nother level, and that's a lot of fun. And then you're really I'm able to help others, and that's one of my passions.
I love that. Yeah, that was deep, but not too deep. So, how about the second one? When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, how have you've lost your focus temporarily? Literally losing my focus while I'm reading the question, right? Or have you lost your focus temporarily? What do you do to overcome that?
Got it. Code red, like I'm fuming, super hot. Immediately, I'm just gonna take a step back. I'll go for a walk. I'm gonna pray. If I'm cranky, I'm gonna get something to eat. Right, that's an Italian thing.
Hey, hangry. That's you're preaching the choir right there.
That's real, right? So, but I have my wife's my best friend, so she's a great confidant. But also I have close friends that I could reach out to. I have mentors within the industry, but I really just I remove myself from the situation for a moment. And it's super sad when Kobe Bryant passed away. I was really watching a lot of his videos, and someone asked him the same question, and he's like, who am I? I'm not even that important. I'm like, dude, you're Kobe Bryant. But that was just great perspective, right? He's like, I play basketball. I'm like, I do mortgages. Like, that's just, who am I that important? Why would I take such a offense or get so upset about that? And that removing myself from the situation is where I really find a good solution. And I love to meditate. If I meditate in the morning, I'm having a great day.
Nice.
That helps.
I'm not a meditator yet, but I probably should start doing it.
Yeah.
Heard some good things about it. Last one here. What are some bad recommendations / advice that you hear in the industry that you need to probably voice or make aware to individuals listening?
It's a great question. Just last week, I got a call from one of my loan officers on the East Coast, and she's like, I need to share something with you. I said, what's up? They're making an offer on a property, and the listing agent who owned the title company, who owned the real estate brokerage, and also owned the mortgage company, was basically told her, we're not going to accept your offer unless your client uses us as a mortgage company, which, I'm all for people having their, multiple businesses, but you can't coerce someone or force them to use your company. You can give them an incentive, you can give them an option. So I would, and then she shared that with her buyer, and her buyer said, we're not going to be manipulated, because when you're in those type of situations, you're going to get yourself in trouble, right? And those people don't last. They really don't. In 2008, 2009, there was a lot of REOs and a lot of short sale people and people that had bank listings. And the ones who didn't do it right didn't last. I'm grateful to be part of this group because I know it's high professionals, high ethical individuals, and it's our responsibility to say, hey, we're not going to do business with people
100%.
Like that. So that, and then also real estate's local in nature. And I know there's a lot of online options. There's a lot of, a lot of online mortgage companies, but I would say trust your realtor's recommendation. And the reason being is your realtor has vetted out this person. They're here locally, right? They have a reputation. They want to perform. I always say, hey, I want to perform. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm in the community. I might run into you at the grocery store or a sporting event or a kid's school. I need to earn my business every day. These online companies, I'm not knocking them, but there's no one's going to put the effort in to make sure that you have an incredible experience than like a local person. Trust your realtor on who they refer you, or those are the two big things that I'm seeing. Do ethical work and trust the recommendations, because they're doing it for a reason.
Yeah, powerful. But he's so right. You're so right on the sense that you do have to trust the experts. I think we kind of are in the time where it's like, ooh, shiny object, shiny thing, like let's look over here, but it's like let's stop, like you had mentioned, go back to the basics, like let's stop and think about it for a second. Like, hey, like these people are the experts. Like why should I not trust them? I mean, do your research, that's fine, right? But like trust what they're saying. If you don't trust them, then you probably shouldn't be using them at all, right? So you're hitting the nail on the head there. So Gio, powerful message, great knowledge for everyone. We are already wrapped up here and out of time, but Gio, thank you again for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
I appreciate it, buddy. It's been a great time. Thank you.
Of course. So as always, the RP Experience is extremely thrilled to have you on here, and we're here at Venture X in the podcast studio. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode. See you guys.